everyone. Welcome back. I hope everyone had wonderful session and wonderful discussions. This is going to be our last meeting for this afternoon. And then we are going to be able to have reflection from the individual discussions that took place. We are just starting our communication and exchange and deciding about what are the neuro challenges and what kind of technologies that we are going to collectively develop in order to be able to go to the next step. So first, we are going to be continuing with the learning and education. In this particular case, Christian Lemberger is joining us. Okay, Bob is here as well. Then they're going to be able to join at the same time. So who shall we also invite? Who was your vice chair?
Vice chair was Ulrich Ettinger. I'm not sure if he's around.
He's not currently. Okay. So Bob, sorry. What happened is that the other session didn't really continue, so we are pulled to this particular session. And then the floor is yours. And I will
take it away.
What I was mentioning already is that now the idea is that we are going to go through the 8 different sessions. We are going to get the insight, what were the discussions about, and then we would be able to discuss all together. So we can come, sorry.
So that means if we have 8 sessions, then it should be quite short reporting, so that we open up for some more general discussion. So
exactly, 3 minutes maximum.
Yeah.
Perfect. And we are starting with learning and education. Christian.
Yeah, we had a very lively discussion, and I'd also again like to thank everybody for participating. There were we've been going through quite a number of themes, and I'm just going to list them briefly. So one of the things that that was mentioned several times was the use of AI as one of the artificial intelligence as one of the emerging themes or research themes that should be covered also in education. And that could also be helpful for neurotech itself, for instance, when it comes to translation of different languages, etc. Then the second point that we discussed for quite some time was the use of what we know about how the brain works, essentially, and use that to our advantage in neurotech for as a guidance for how to design the courses. So what we know about learning, motivation, and to our advantage. For instance, in the pedagogy field lab, where we also discussed this application headed by Boazici for coming up with concepts on how to teach online. And also, one of the emerging points there was that that actually requires learning on both sides, the instructors and the students, and how to do this kind of hybrid teaching in a successful way. The graded school was briefly talked about. There we briefly talked about how to enable actual joint projects. It's probably depending to quite a degree on having actual funding for joint projects and joint students. That seemed to be crucial to get it actually running and to get the enthusiasm also on the student side. And then we went over to the Lifelong Learning Center and how to attract people. So how to get them, also those that have been more distant to education and more distant to neuroscience, maybe back into the fold if they're interested. And so we've been discussing a few different options. Language came up as one potential barrier, which we didn't see as an issue for younger people and at the undergraduate level, where probably everybody who's joining neurotech is speaking English. But that might be a stage also for sometimes maybe for instructors who are basically a little bit longer in business. And then there were a couple of very good, very specific suggestions, which we probably need to consider very early on, and we should have subtitles, not only because they are more easily translated, but it's also important for the hearing impaired, which came up earlier in the meeting already. So. Then there was some final point, just to make that very quick. And that point was intercultural exchange and training. And there were quite a few people in the audience who made a strong case for it, because it both helps the student if he or she is going to come to a different place, understand what's happening or around, so to actually fit in and understand that, but also for the instructors who are probably going also maybe need some guidance occasionally to understand how their prospective students are behaving in a certain way. So intercultural training was thought to be important in the to make it work. There were a couple of other points, but those were the most important ones.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So now, instead of going through the room numbers, we are just admitting the chairs and vice chairs. And because Fleur and Mohsen is already they are here, I would like to suggest we continue with biological and artificial intelligence. And Fleur is currently reconnecting. So Mohsen, if you want, you can get started with the summary.
Yeah. Hello, everyone, again here. So we had a really great discussion, and basically we were trying to discuss to find out how the engineers can learn from biologists and neuroscientists in order to bring biological intelligence into artificial intelligence systems, and to find out what does artificial intelligence means when it comes to the real life, healthcare, mobility, smart city, and so on.
Yeah, we had a really active and great discussion. It was really nice. I think we discussed for a while the fact that I think most of us agree that like true smart agents don't really exist yet, in the sense that we have, of course, AI now, but in the sense that agents are autonomously interacting with their environment and really have that feedback loop where they, for instance, can decide which sensors they trust at which moment in time. It doesn't exist yet. And then our discussion actually moved a little bit towards the ethical issues, not only that if we are to develop more and more smarter systems, and also things like brain organoids, at what point do they become so smart that they actually become self-aware and they might be suffering, and also that they might have to make ethical decisions at certain points. So we actually spent some time exploring that and agreed that, you know, at a certain point, if we are developing more and more real smart artificial intelligence, that we might need to include ethical modules or philosophers to discuss this, and that is really important. And that we hope to develop truly autonomous systems that might make more decisions on where to go, what sensory input to trust, and so on. That this closed loop interaction doesn't yet exist, and also to what extent we really need to develop truly smart objects, or because we don't need to copy biological intelligence, but we might actually want them to do different things. So the question is also, how smart do we want our smart systems to be? I think that was kind of a summary of what we did.
Yeah, thank you, Flor.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Then we are going to move on to nutrition and cognition. Santiago Canals is here.
Yeah, thank you very much. So we had an interesting discussion in the panel about nutrition and cognition. We had opportunity to go through many different aspects, from malnutrition due to hunger, but also malnutrition due to excessive and bad dietary habits. And we move from there also into the problem of contaminants in what we eat. Not only the typical ones, but also the microplastics and all these things that will be here and in the future due to the new production protocols. And we have to take care of what they can do. And so we should minimize them, but we have to at least understand what could be the impact. So from those environmental aspects, we move also into the more mechanistic things. So how all these diet habits interact with our microbiota and other systems in the body, and how they ultimately influence cognition. So we were discussing that now we are all well aware that cognition is not just in the brain. So we are embodied. So our brain is in a complex multi-organ body. We need to understand these interactions. These interactions are bidirectional. So through the diet, we can influence both directions of this interaction, and this needs to be developed. And to develop this, we need to understand the mechanisms. So we were also talking about mechanisms behind these links. And also the discussion, interestingly, moved into policymakers. So it's not just that we need to provide the knowledge and the mechanisms. We need to provide this information to policymakers to improve how we advertise diets, what we advertise, and how do we teach our kids even from school. And finally, we had time also to discuss, probably similar to many panels, about new gadgets, machine learning, and how they can combine to provide online informed data to tell us what should we be eating, or not only to provide not only personalized information for our health, but also to the clinicians. And this should be interactive and somehow in a cloud provide this food for thought in the literal sense. So that was more or less our discussion. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Now we are moving on to neurotechnology and big data. Kian Open and Nicholas Irving.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity to run the workshop. That was really fun and interesting. And I guess ours was neurotechnology and big data. And so the neurotechnology topic sounds very much like neurotech. So we thought we should, we talked about one very basic issue, which is to the extent to which the remit of neurotech as a university is to use neuroscience and technology for the benefit of education itself, or is it primarily as a example, multidisciplinary and great topic, very topical and important to society, that would seed education more generally, but not necessarily contingent on our work. So I think that is something that we should kind of explore, the extent to which we're trying to do each of those two things. We spent a little bit of time just kind of defining what neurotechnology is, and we talked about methods for measuring, extending, altering brain activity, interfacing brain activity with the world, but also, like many other people who've reported now on workshops, algorithms and analysis tools are very much at the forefront, and we thought those should also be included in that. Mm-hmm. And we talked about, the amazing continuing revolution of methods to measure and change human brain activity, but also the real revolution in analytics and computational power and computational approaches to use brain activity, to simulate it, to understand it, and that also has an enormous impact. And in discussing several things, I think the main glue that came together in terms of neurotechnology and several of the conversations was the difficulty of integrating or stitching things together. So obviously each of our methods kind of measure different things, and sort of putting these different perspectives that the different methods bring together itself is challenging. Also, we acquiring data from different organisms, that poses problems. We have things from different levels of analysis, and actually abstracting what's computationally relevant from each level of analysis in order to integrate it with others is really, really hard. Most of us talk about it, but that's a really hard stitching work to do. But also, very interestingly, in regard to what other people have said here, the importance of stitching neuroscience together with other fields. So not just us telling educators what to do, but for example, working with people who really have expertise in the science of education, in the application of education. So those kind of cross-boundary stitching as really important. So we spend most of our time talking about the neurotechnology, and we talked about move to big data, and we talked primarily about how big data is very welcome in the sense that especially when it's openly available, because it enormously increases access to data sets for people who might not have access in different countries, for example, and from different economic status universities. And that also could bring diversity of science, which will be great. And that obviously there are some really practical applications. So for example, making the study of rare diseases possible by bringing them to scale, but also in pointing us to identifying very, very tricky phenotypes. So for example, in psychiatric and psychological disorders, we don't even have an objective phenotype. We have, by definition, subjective phenotypes. And actually just understanding those is a really difficult, important first step for us to to be able to crack mental health diseases. And very similar things will apply, for example, to learning disabilities and things that hold back people in education, sort of like trying to give us a better grasp of cognitive and psychological phenotypes. But ultimately, I think we all felt that there's still a role for theoretically and hypothesis-driven science. And I think one of the challenges is going to be how do those things work together? I think that kind of covers what we discussed in our group.
Perfect.
Nick.
Thank you so much.
Yep,
So,
thanks, Tansu.
Thank you. We are going to get back. All right. And our next topic is public and ethics. And Takash is with us.
Yes, thank you. Hi, everyone. We had a very interesting discussion on public and ethics. In fact, mainly on ethics in our meeting. There were some people who were very interested in these problems because we know that new and powerful neurotechnologies will impact on daily life of people very strong. So we suggest that a work group, inter-work package work group, should be formed for developing, for working out ethical framework of neurotechnologies based on the European Union's directives. You can find on the net, of course, and there are some colleagues who are interested in this work too. I know that VP3 has a focus on ethics, but we can see that we should widen the scope of ethics to all VPs. So that's why we suggest that a small group of colleagues, inter-VP form has to be formed.
Thank you so much. Indeed, this is, sorry, as you have heard in Kia's also summary, and you're going to hear also in the health and healthcare, this comes back over and over again. Policymaking and ethics, they are going to be fundamentally important for any of the actions across any of the neuro challenges that we are going to be working on. Thank you so much for the contribution. And thanks for everyone, obviously, who have joined the discussions.
All right.
And our next topic is economy and ecology. Daphne, and we have Stefan. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Tansu. It was a great opportunity having this excellent interaction with more than 1,000 people. And of course, we focus our discussions, and it was really, really very nice, I would say, occasion to analyze different opinions. So the main idea of the session was how can we get to a friendly economy compatible with a healthy environment and a healthy society. And we have highlighted this as being a main, one of the main targets of the project itself, of Neurotech. And we discuss around the concepts related to ecology and economy. We have defined actually the neuro challenges as being challenges, societal challenges that can be met by neuroscientific approach and neurotechnological approach and knowledge, new information, data, and knowledge in this respect. And at the end of the day, finding solution for current problems and particularly for future-oriented aspects. We have identified as a tremendous need to match the ecology and economy, and one of the most important driver in this respect is human behavior. And in order to build up a friendly economy, we definitely need to change a little bit the human behavior. And the opportunities here in this marvelous project, because we may integrate education at the same time. We have discussed about simultaneously driven processes. So we have identified the need of having a particular strategy of education matchable with research and what's going on in industry, and also the tremendous need to develop the markets in this direction. So having a bridge between all these important modules will contribute to the tremendous need to change human behavior. As in now, you know, human behavior is a little bit more aggressive and a little bit more, I would say, let's say that mankind is a little bit greedy and we have a greedy society. So we have to alleviate this and to turn it in more empathic, mindful society. And also we need a little bit of humbleness at the end of the day. And combining all these aspects will be able to change a little bit human behavior. What we have precisely approached in this respect, we have identified some important challenges, like, for example, growing income inequality, the global climate crisis, uncertainty surrounding the global economy, you know, increasing migration, these kind of facts. We have allocated them to each area. I mean, what is more related to ecology, what is more related to economy, what is more related to mankind. Of course, we have been a little bit biased because we had a lot of doctors around, and we jump over the topic of neuroeconomics, the impact of health technologies assessment as an important tool to alleviate inequities and disparities related to healthcare systems at the end. So it was a very interesting, I would say, approach. We had also some very focused discussions regarding some particular new technologies able to describe better the brain function and cognitive aspects, like, for example, eye tracking system. We have some very good researchers in this respect, and trying to identify the eye tracking system as a good tool to predict human behavior, because we need human behavior prediction to understand better the most important components of human decision making and human behavior. So we have explored this area nicely and gently with the main idea and aim to slightly nicely change human behavior. It was a nice discussion with the lady from Boğaziçi, who is a German as origin, you know, discussing what is most important, to have a top-down or a bottom-up approach. How can we change this in a psychological, I mean, in the individualized way and at the society level? And we derive very interesting conclusions. So that is basically the current context of our discussion, with nice concepts and identifying and particularly creating a kind of ranking of the aspects that we have put on the table today. It was a very helpful and very nice, extremely nice interaction with my co-chair, who was able to solve many of the pharmacoeconomical and I would say policy-related, health policy-related dilemmas. Stefan was brilliantly performed, as always. We know he's a great interactor and integrator. So it was a good choice to have this topic explored in this manner. Thank you, Tansu.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And it seems like it's a great start to what it is going to be a long 3 years of discussion and significant contributions coming from the entire group. Perfect. Now we have the smart cities.
Well, would you invite Begüm too, Tansu?
Yes, she's joining. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Okay, then I can maybe summarize. Well, it's a very challenging, very interesting topic, smart cities. So we started with a presentation, and it's a diverse topic too. So we took first sustainable development of cities as a pillar to start discussion. And then we mentioned the adaptive utilization of resources and context-aware decision-making that's necessary, and for that sensing is necessary, and using that sense data in our algorithms. We suggested that's the way to go. But one thing that was nice was not just sensing the real-time sensing through sensors, but also citizen science. So that's something like social science techniques should also be used, so people will feel included and they will approve the innovation. So societal innovation part was emphasized. And then we took smart design of public space. We are from Istanbul, so we have major examples of that in Istanbul. So we gave some examples of that on the routine, how these spaces, what they may need, and at times of crisis also. And we gave the example of the pandemic, because there are some streets with major crowd normally in the routine, and there is a regulation necessity there. But the solution currently to that is a lockdown, and a street which is normally packed is suddenly completely empty. And that doesn't seem like a smart solution we postulated. So with that, we opened the discussion, and then we also posted our collaboration with Istanbul Greater Municipality and Istanbul Planning Agency, Institute Istanbul. These are academic, institutions relating academy with the municipality. So these will be our partners, and then they will offer us some nice testing beds. So that will be promising. And from there, we gave the floor to the people, and Begüm posted several questions and collected the responses with Mentimeter, which worked like a charm actually. So she's here. Maybe she can summarize what was the outcome of that.
Thanks a lot, and I think it was a lively discussion in the sense that it was interesting to understand what people had in mind in relation to smart cities. So the first question we had was, what smart cities means to you? And apart from this, digitalization, high-tech issues, it is very interesting to see that people relate smart cities with all positive adjectives, in the sense that you have this easy, safe, socially responsible, citizen-friendly, connected, comfortable, responsive. So I think it's a very important issue, like that will be the big challenge, I think, to really achieve these goals. And then we asked where we are in 2020 in relation to societal needs. And so on the one hand, we had this feedback which relates to urban problems, accessibility, public health. So these are the societal needs for the time being, affordability of housing, social inclusion, etc. But interestingly, you also have, apart from these urban problems at hand, you have references to the way we should control technology, socially informed technology, democratization of technology, more public actors, predictability, etc. So I think this is quite an important insight. And then we asked, where do we want to go? So that's more like for 2040. We have reference to open data platforms, greener cities, more arts and sciences together, ethics, human rights, harmony with nature. And then finally, we had this question in relation to knowledge gaps. And then I think we really had this discussion also, and it relates to the morning sessions as well. Technological literacy, cybersecurity awareness, for instance, and transparency, dissemination of data and findings. IT safety was at the core of the discussion as well. Evidence-based findings and care solutions. And I think this care goes to the nature and also to people. And culture connected technologies. So in the way we really, shape technology will be key. So thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. This is very insightful indeed. Thank you very much. Now we are continuing with health and healthcare, the last one. Yeah. Bob?
Yeah, okay. Then we had a vivid discussion as well. Thanks very much for everyone's participation. We started in a philosophical note talking about aging and actually how old should people become, or how old can they become physically, and what are the consequences of that both for the individual and society, and then got into more thinking about how we can actually keep people healthy, and maybe preventing neurological diseases is more beneficial to society and healthcare systems than actually trying to cure them once they're done. I also had a discussion about medicines and what really are the expectations. What can we do? We have no cures we have hardly any treatments for neurodegenerative and neurological diseases. So what would be the expectation? And maybe the expectation is not the cure, but actually just a little bit more modest. That firstly, we need to understand what's causing them. That's the basic research and clinically applied research. And then secondly, can we just stop the process or slow it down to start off with before we can stop, and then cure can come maybe later on. We talked about the possibilities for the new technological advances, gene therapy, CRISPR-Cas, and whether how and when they'll be used, potentially used. We talked a lot about the importance of understanding mental ill health, especially among younger generations, where there's a lot spoken about, and discussed the prospect. If we're really going to do this and think about the future ahead, 20 or even more years in the head, we're talking about the future of that young generation, not of ourselves, but we won't be here to see it. So it's quite important to actually understand the younger generations and really try and see, maybe they'll have a completely different spectrum of neurological disorders compared to us, because society has changed, the pressures have changed, the education has changed. So it was a very interesting, lots of interesting talks. Whether we should put focus on, there's too little focus on neuro rehabilitation. And how will technologies and robotics and AI actually come into that? So I think it was an extremely good thing. But maybe you'll allow me just 2 minutes to wrap up the session. Being a responsible person for this work package, I think that it's been fantastic addressing a question and that's come up. How are we going to? How are we going to do this when it comes to teaching and putting all these expertises together? I think that the medical program is going to be very difficult. You have to think also that this consortium is only actually 3 years in time frame. So if we can get a joint master's program or a doctoral program, then we're doing quite well. But medical programs will be outside the scope of this. But hopefully what you've seen is that it's really interesting to sit and talk with each other. We have a lot to talk about. It's complex, and that was the whole point of this, to get the discussions going, to understand that we have different viewpoints, we have different expertises, but that together we can be extremely creative. I was worried the 1.5 hours would be too long for this session, but it actually felt like it wasn't long enough. And that's the good point, that together we can do this. We see the way that we can interact. We have strength in the interactions of using mutual expertises to the one aim, which is then to address these neuro challenges. But I think neuro challenges is maybe the wrong word to use. I think what we've been discussing is neuro potential, because we have the potential to actually make a difference in the future. So I look forward to the continued work within Work Package 3 with all of you involved. And I hope that the wider audience here will actually get involved as well, because you're all important players in this. So thanks very much.
Thank you so much. So I would like to basically join Bob in terms of thanking all of you. This has been a stellar experience, because at the end of the day, we are trying to achieve something that is quite unique, right? We have put together 8 different countries, 8 different education systems to a certain extent, and each university has certain specializations. Some of them are broader than the others, and however, we were able to come to a platform where we can all focus on independent topics. And we have identified 8 of these, but frankly, we could have probably identified 20 more, and we would still be able to contribute significantly. So that shows the potential of this group, and we are just at the starting of a long process. So as you have seen in the very first presentation, we have a work plan that is going to span 20 years. By the end of that, we will be a global power in neurotech. So during the first 3 years, if we can achieve the 5 deliverables that we mentioned, it will already going to put us in a place that nobody has ever achieved before. So these are very ambitious, but considering the interest, even for the virtual opening of the university, frankly, we are extremely delighted. There is a palpable interest from the community, so we are excited to work together in order to be able to push the boundaries. And on that note, I don't want to really take too much of your time because this one was a full working day. I would like to thank to everyone who has contributed, all the work package leaders, all the teams across the 8 universities, and especially Valentin and Elise, who have been at the background of all the technical support throughout the day. Despite all the problems, I think they have done a marvelous job in terms of getting everything up and running. Thank you so very much all. And as we slowly start departing, I want to actually play you another movie. And then we are going to see each other very soon. And before rolling the movie, happy holidays.
See you in Neurotech.
Увидимся на NeurotechEU.
Ci vediamo al NeurotechEU.
Nos vemos en NeurotechEU.
Vejo você em NeurotechEU.
NeurotechEU para Maria.
Do zobaczenia na NeurotechEU.
Widzimy się na NeurotechEU.
Ens veiem a NeurotechEU.
Wir freuen uns darauf, euch bei NeurotechEU willkommen zu heißen.
Nos vemos en NeurotechEU.
Tot ziens bij NeurotechEU.
Takimetu in Neurotech.
Tuta onana NeurotechEU.
Sjáumst í Neurotech ESB.
Találkozunk a NeurotechEU.
Zingaude NeurotechEU projektuan.
Umidedidor NeurotechEU.
Do zobaczenia w NeurotechEU.
NeurotechEU'da görüşmek üzere.
NeurotechEU で会いましょう。
Toque de cap NeurotechEU me.
Vejo você na NeurotechEU.
Wir sehen uns in NeurotechEU.
Sjáumst í Neurotech.
See you at the NeurotechEU.
Hẹn gặp các bạn ở NeurotechEU.
आपसे मिलेंगे NeurotechEU.
À bientôt à NeurotechEU.
Mes Tiximies NeurotechEU.
欧洲神经科技界
Rosene au NeurotechEU.
Salut tout le monde, on se voit en NeurotechEU.
We zien elkaar in NeurotechEU.
NeurotechEU Le Parc Club.
Ci vediamo a NeurotechEU.
به امید دیدار شما در NeurotechEU.
Ens veiem a NeurotechEU.
See you in Neurotech.
NeurotechEU'da görüşmek üzere.